Right, hi plastic people. Welcome to quick wrap up. Shouldn't be too long today. Uh, just going to go through, show off what we've got right now. There's not really anything left to do other than peel the uh, side panels and put the foam tape on them. Looking at the gap, I think the 1 mil may be all right, but I might just do the 3 mil to make sure we get a good seal. As you can see, I've got a print there on the bed. That was cover for the wires for the LEDs. So that will cover the wires in the corners on the LEDs. I've got 4 of them printed out, but of course I won't be able to use one in the back right. That white Voron logo you can see in the back right has the chamber thermistor in it. So of course I'm not going to be able to put one of these corner covers on. I have done about 5 hours worth of printing on the printer so far in the last couple of days, and so far it's working great. Have not tuned it other than to make sure that things are sticking to the bed. Beyond that and your normal extrusion multipliers, I have not tuned the printer yet, so this is just stock out of the box settings. I just copied over my solid fork profile into Super Slicer and added that, just changed the bed size to the bigger bed for the Trident. I figured that would be the best one to use since they're the same motion system. Basically everything's identical between the two other than size. All right, I did have a problem when I first got it going through motion testing and that with the left front Z squeaking. Some grease on the screws, lead screws is all that took to quiet it down. It is now actually the quietest Voron I've got in the house. The 2.4 is easily the loudest, followed by the solid fork, then the V0.1, and then this one is the quietest. My Prusa is still quieter, but not by a whole hell of a lot. We actually had this one running and printing last night while we were watching streams and could barely hear the thing. I had it facing a different direction so I could look from the couch over and see the Nomi with the percentage of completion on there, which was kind of nice. Didn't have to look at a computer, didn't have to get up to come over and look at the screen. Right there on the hot end as it was moving about, I could see the percentage. Kind of nice. I'll admit it was different, and I figured, you know, hey, this was a good way to see it. So we'll go over real quick what we've got done. I do have the top panel is on. You can see there the spool holder, and I do have the foam tape in. The sturdy handles, those are, can't really see it, but I didn't have any M5x12, so I just picked some up at Home Depot to hold this and the back piece on, the block off, because I don't run a exhaust fan. Let's move the head forward here. So we will drop Z and bring Y forward. And we'll take and pull the move this spool holder down onto the couch behind. A little sticky rubber pads keep it from moving, but they're all sticking to the top pretty good too. And then so let's move this. And this has just been sitting on the box for the Rook parts that are coming. So here is probably a little better overview of the whole printer. Lighting's not the greatest. My little battery powered hot glue gun is there. I use that after soldering the wires to the LED strips to keep them in place and give a little strain relief. So I am using, I don't need all the RGB, so I'm just using the Cobb LED strips. I think this is 3 or 5 mil wide, and I picked it up quite a while ago. I used it on the 2.4 and on this one, and I just wired up, or I've got some clips printed out for the salad fork. This is these here. These are the same pieces I used on the Trident and the 2.4. I just scaled them down 75%. I did a test of just the corner to make sure it would fit fine in there on the salad fork 1515s, and it does. So I just need to wire it up, solder it all together, hot snot on it for strain relief, and get it in there. Morning, Bill. How are you today? I'm just going over what we've got on this Trident now. So remember which camera I'm on and if it'll focus. Change cameras. So this one normally focuses pretty good and quick. White's just not a great filament. Here's the same part in a bluish teal kind of color. And it will go up here like that to cover the wires. And then there's the Voron cube that I printed out first just to make sure everything was good. Initially, I didn't think it looked that great until I pulled it off and looked at it, and it came out a lot better than I thought it did. So these pieces here are going to cover up these LED wires. They'll go on the corners up here, underneath, of course, and I'll route the wires in there so you can't see the wires. I've got 4 printed out, but as you can see in that back corner, the thermistor's there, and we can't, that won't route underneath. Take that off. There we go. So now we've got that off. Well, I've got this one done, so now I've got to work on the 2.4, the V.0, or the V0.1, and I still have to swap out the Prusa V6 for the Revo 6, and that'll put all of my printers on the Revo system so I can easily swap hot ends, or nozzles, not hot ends. So, and I did do the wider door opening mod. I do really like that. So you can actually get in there without the doors getting in the way. The CAN cable here for the CAN board, they said a 1 mil steel wire. I didn't have 1 mil steel wire in the house, but I went to the craft store. I picked up some 20 gauge stainless steel 3/4 hard jeweler's wire, and that seems to be working. It holds it fairly well to keep this and give it a little strain relief. The piece here modeled for the current cable doesn't have a cutout for the USB-C underneath, so either I'm going to have to throw that into a CAD and model one myself, or attempt to, or leave it like this. It's not bothering anything the way it is. It does have CAN boot on it, so I can update over CAN. I don't have to worry about unplugging from CAN and running the cable for it, for the USB-C to flash it. You can see back here I've got my cable for the LEDs coming into this corner and running around clockwise. This is the holder for the thermistor. It's just a 100K thermistor since the boards all support it. No need for an amplifier board on there. I might swap out the Bowden tube here for a clear. I think I've still got some clear from when I did the other ones, and I like that clear better because you can see any color filament that's inside real easy without any problems. I do have all the cables from the back there. I don't know how well we can see it. So you can see the cable bundle up here, and then I've got it into sleeving here, and you may be able to see kind of there. You can see where it's going down the side. The only one I don't really like is this CAN cable. I looked to try to figure out if there was a better way to run it, and that seemed to be the best way. I didn't want to have to run it down into the chain because it doesn't need to go through the chain, and the other option would have been on this side. But there's the cutout here, and of course the corner cutouts for all the other cabling. So I did not want to try to have to put another cutout in or mess with that. So let's see if we can get getting the bottom panel in, and in the back was a pain. I gotta move the bed up. Just Homesy, that'll take it all the way. All right, so bring that out, and we can see the inverted electronics. One nice thing about this BTT Pi board, if you can see, I've got power running here. It can take 12 to 24 volt. It can take 12 to 24 volt for power. It does not need the 5 volt from the USB-C for power or through the GPIO pins. So I just ran direct off of the power supply for my power for that one. Kind of a bit of a mess in the back two corners there, but I think the rest of it really came out nice and looks pretty clean overall. I didn't want to chop too much off of the stepper cables and be constrained on where I could run them, so I left basically some service loops in there, and that's what you see jumbled up on the right. And then even though the power cables are basically all cut to length, there's just a lot of them in that back left corner, so you can really see those get jumbled up. But I think it came out good, especially for the first time trying to fit everything into the 250 instead of the nice big one. Yeah, having that on the 24 is great. This, you can see the little CAN board. I did have to flash that with candlelight. Really, Canon still got some ways to go, but even in the last year that I've been messing with it, or if it's been that long since I built the salad fork, it's really gotten so much better. And I just followed the BTT GitHub for the U2C, for the board that's on the BTT Pi, and then the one for the SB or EBB 2240 on the toolhead, and it just went in perfectly. I didn't have a single problem, didn't really have any questions about it. It just worked, which is how I really want it to be. I think it's still got a little ways to go. I'd like a little better documentation on some of the pinouts and that, but they're working on that, I know. And some of the boards have really great, and some of the boards are not so much. Getting away from the SGH, whatever the 1 1/4 mil spacing JST connectors. I need to look up the other one. Luckily, I only had to do 2 crimps, two wires for that on this one. The rest of them were either already pre-done or a different connector. So that was good. I only really had to do the thermistor and the end stop, which I am using the the Chaoticlab CNC Tap, and that other than being a lot louder than Boop on the salad fork, seems to be working very well. I am going to leave the bottom panel off because I do have to do my serial request video, and of course I want to show off the electronics since I can while it's printing with it in this inverted orientation. But let's get this out of the way. I've got to start a boat, I think, because it's a new printer. You have to print a boat. And then these magnetic panels are so nice. I really like using them. Let's get a boat started, and then we'll go over some thoughts on the kit itself and what's left, because there's a good bit of stuff left. Did the bridge mode work out pretty good, Bill? I looked at the possibility, but that U2C board is so cheap to add to the top of the BTT Pi. And you know, being all in one basically on there, I just figured that was a good way to go. So I do also need to get a macro created for the lights, because right now they're either all on or I have to go into the printer config, edit it, and disable the lights. I don't have a way to turn them on and off yet, so I've got to create a macro for that. Let's see. So here is my mainsail. I did set up 3 presets: ABS, PETG, and PLA. They all set the extruder to 145 for tap. That way it isn't overheated on the nozzle for the tap. And I got to remember where I've got the boat. I think it is in the, I've got so many files in here. I haven't printed a Benchy in, I think, a couple of years. I'll just let it print just as it sits. Let's drop the infill. Doesn't need to be 40% though. Set it up like I've got all my others. I've got it going direct to the printer right from Super Slicer. I did my first print yesterday with organic supports in the new Prusa Slicer. I may switch over to Prusa Slicer until Super Slicer adds organic supports. Those came out really nice and came off. You just looked at them and they fell right off. They worked out so well. I can't see where they were at on the print. Just worked out so much better than I could think of. I did do a Voron cube already, Bill. I'll show it to you here in a second. Let's go ahead and send the benchy. So that should get in there. Oh, and there it goes. Back the camera up a bit. Yeah, here is the Voron cube I printed out yesterday, or day before. It sitting on the bed, you know how harsh lights above can cause the layer lines to look a little off. But so sitting on the bed, I was like, oh, that doesn't look like that great. I'm going to need to reprint it. And I don't know, let's get it up at better light. Maybe better light. No, I thought I was going to have to do more tuning. It just came out beautifully. First layer's good. I did have to tweak that. Of course, you always have to tweak your first layer as you're going through your setup. Top layer's nice and smooth. The only thing I had to adjust was for overhangs. I did have to bump the fan speed up. It was stock at 10%, so I set it to 40, and everything else I've printed has come out beautiful. So I am not going to complain on that front. Let's put the box back up here and see if we can get a good angle on Benchy going. There we go. And you can see the, oh, I did not do the bearing test. No, I've got some, I just didn't do it. So let's pull well, let me rephrase that. I had some. I don't know for sure that I've got some because I did when I made the spool holder, it used bearings, but I've got 2 left. So let's see. I don't know if these are the right size though. These are the wrong size. I've got the big spool holder bearings. I don't remember what the number is. I don't have the little ones, the smaller ones anyway, that'll fit in there. I can check with my ruler to see if I think it's supposed to be 20, 20, 20, right? Let's see. Dimensionality wise, oh, it's a 30 mil cube because this is basically 30 mil on the dot. So measuring comes out good. But I don't have the right bearings to test with. The ones I've got are the big skateboard bearings. I've got extra feet though, if I ever need them. So we're still waiting on it to reach the temps. So even there, you can see there on the Nomi screen. That's a nice thing to see. Is you can just look straight at that because this this little touch screen down here is little, and it's not the easiest thing to read from any distance, but I can read that Nomi screen pretty well without being right up close to it. So that's nice. You can see, it's 105 is the target at the top, and it's at 96. So kind of nice to see that on there. I didn't know if I would like it or not, but I'll say I'm at least on the fence with it. I like that I can do that, and once it actually starts printing, it will show percentage complete, which that's quite nice. And I didn't realize that. I'd see a new slider on my right here on my thing. So let's see if this works. No. So the light's still on even though that's at 0. I'll have to check and mess around with the configuration and get that. Since I'm only printing ABS, I don't go any higher than 40% on my cooling fan. But it's been good. There's a good test for Benchy coming up because the cube, it's got some spots. I don't know if we can see. I don't know if the camera can see in there well enough. No. Let's try that, maybe. Kind of, sort of. You can kind of see that bridging, and that bridging actually came out really well. That was with the fan at 10%. So even the, I think my battery's getting low on my, even the little overhangs here on the logo aren't bad. Those overhangs I expect to be all right. There go my lights. So that light is working. Overall, the fan performance, this is just not a very good, not being able to see in there very well, but it does look like the cooling's okay. The lights are on a spare heater port on the Octopus. So I'm guessing that's why. There we go, we're at 40%. And we're gonna go all the way up to 100. There we go. Yeah, so the lights are on a spare hot end port, heater port. It's HE3, I believe. The only I've got what, 3 heater ports on there, 4 heater ports on there, and I'm only using the one for the bed because the hot end itself is on the can board. So a perfect thing to use. Those are 24-volt strips. Works out great. Now I didn't see that last night, but I made some changes to the configuration file, and I didn't reboot until about 20-30 minutes before stream starts. So that's why that's why I didn't see that case light there until just then. I wasn't looking for it. Everything else works good. With that being there, I won't worry about a macro since that's working as I expect it to work. All right, well, the boat is starting. Let's see if we can get a little better can't really see the first layer because that's a big hot end. I think I broke a wire on my NeoPixels. I don't know if it'll come on. I've got the logo working, but the two on the nozzle aren't working. And you probably, I can't see it on the video, but I can see it in person. Let's kill the case lights and see if you can see it. And we're also, there you go. So I've got the logo working, but I think I broke a wire. I don't have any continuity, but I'm not 100% sure that I should on the signal wire for the NeoPixels. The positive and negative do. You can see it kind of shaking a bit. I'm on a folding table, so I have not run input shaper. I don't even know where this printer is going to end up. It may just end up on the floor for a short period of time, at least while it prints out the rook parts. And I'll run that at the I'll run input shaper once it's sitting in a little bit better spot. Yeah, I do need to change and get a startup macro that turns at least turns the logo lights on. The nozzle lights would be very nice to have, but the logo lights look pretty cool. And I did them in the blue to match the blue in the printer. So let's let Benchy run, and we'll go over some of this stuff some of the stuff on the kit. So overall, the Formbot kit, I really don't have any complaints. Some things I'd like to see would be the 3mm foam tape instead of the 1mm foam tape. I don't know how good their VHB tape is. I didn't use it, but it's VHB tape. I just had a multi-pack of the 3M in various widths. So I was able to get a width that matched what I needed for the magnetic panels better than the really wide stuff. It's VHB tape. I don't see it being any problem. If you can, Bill, shoot me that. I'm on both Steve and Taylor's Discords as Pushing Plastic, or just on Discord as Pushing Plastic. If not, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. I'll figure it out and get it going. The end stop pod on the right came with a PCB. I'm not using it, but it had a PCB for the Z end stop as well. So that's a bonus. That's nice. Didn't have to worry about those. I like the PCBs rather than having to hardwire. All the cables were pre-cut to length, pre-terminated. If they were like fan cables, they had a socket on them so you could plug the fans into the cables for like the hot end fan and that. That was nice. It had the generic China drag chains with the three holes. They're drag chains. they don't really. They're drag chains. Brand name generic doesn't matter to me. I do think I need to take a couple links out of the Y chain there. Of course, we've got the umbilical running for the can board, and thank you, Bill. That's much appreciated. The cables for the Z motors are just barely long enough to reach a board that is in the far side of the enclosure at the bottom. I'm running in the inverted electronics, so part of that might have been a little different. If I had run a normal electronics layout, I can't say for sure. I would like to have seen a little more and let me cut it to where I need it, but they gave me plenty for the AB motors. I'm sure there was plenty for the extruder motor. That wasn't any problem with that though. Let's see, I'm getting to the point where I might have enough stuff other than extrusions to I've got plenty of screws and other hardware. I've got motors, I've got spare just about everything except for probably the enclosures, the enclosure panels, and the extrusions. So I could self-source. My V2.4 was a Magic Studio / self-source build. So I bought like their extrusion kit, their hardware kit for screws and such, with their motion kit. So it came with motors, the belts, and a few other things. And then I self-sourced a lot of the other stuff. So the bulk of the parts that are like specific to a build, I got through Magic Studio as a kit, but the other stuff was more self-sourced. Both are valid. I like the self-source because I get to pick and choose everything, but I like the kit because it saves me all the hassle having to go and pick and choose everything. That'll be the next one. Will be the Rook kit from Fabrico. I just downloaded their GitHub for it Saturday or Sunday because I did not want to. I know there's constant updates been going on with it, so I didn't want to download it 2 months ago just to find out that a bunch of things have changed. Yes, that's one thing I really like about these Moons motors in this kit was they do have connectors at both ends, so they're not hardwired into the motor, and that's a nice thing to see. And all 6 motors that came with the kit were Moons labeled, and they all had disconnectable cables, which is great. I really do like to see that. Granted, I'm not using the extruder motor that came with the kit, and I'm not going to fault Formbot too much on this, but it is worth mentioning. It was supposed to be including all the stealth burner parts, but this one was still a R1, I guess it would be. This one still had all the parts for the afterburner and no stealth burner parts. That could just be a warehousing thing where they still had some of the older kits in the warehouse, didn't know it when they updated the website. I had all the parts, so I'm not butthurt about it or anything. But it is worth mentioning. Hopefully anybody else that starts picking them up is going to get the stealth burner kits, because I had the parts cooling fan already. I've actually, that one in there is a Sunon maglev, I believe. I'm not going to pull it apart to find out, but I believe that's what's in there. As a bonus, it did come with a couple of bags full of injection molded parts that included the display frame, all the stuff, all the afterburner hot end parts. I'm gonna, if I put the spool holder on the side, I'll use the injection molded version that they sent in this kit. They included filter foam to go on the back for the filter. So you know, some nice injection molded parts. I'm just going to recycle them. I have no use for them myself. I mean, they're black and red. So unless you're doing a black and red standard Voron colors, then you're not going to want to use these. If you're doing custom colors, they're kind of worthless. But I do need to harvest all the heat sets out of them before I throw them in the recycle bin, and that's going to be probably more trouble than it's really worth, but I'll do it. And I'm not even going to be able to use these heat sets. They're fine for the injection molded stuff because they're not the ones with the nice herringbone pattern that we normally will use. That's the Voron standard recommended part. They've just got the straight striations on the barrel, so I'm not going to trust them melting them into the printed parts. I'd rather use the other ones. But hey, for somebody that may not have a good printer to print all the parts, this would save them a little bit of effort. It doesn't have like the motion parts though, so you're not going to, unlike the Seabor ones that come with all the printed parts, you're not going to build it without either printing your own or going through PIF. So I'd say it'd be a much better value add if it was, even if it was the older R1 stuff. It would be a much better value add if it included all the parts you needed. That way, if it's your first printer, you could buy the kit, get it up, get it working, and be good to go. Oh, yeah, I guess I could. I did harvest the heat sets out of one piece. I don't remember what piece it was now. But I did harvest the heat sets out of one of the pieces. Just, I wanted to see what the heat set was. I wanted to see if it was going to be worth harvesting them to keep the heat sets, or what it would be worth it. So there might be a piece missing, but yeah, you know, put it up there for $5. I'm sure it'll be gone in a heartbeat. I don't need anything out of it. Put it up there, just, you know, hey, $5 in shipping and it's yours. I do have some PIF parts for a 2.4 I need to do that with. I ordered some parts because I wasn't sure if I'd be able to print them. And when I was able to print them, I didn't need the PIF parts that I ordered. Or they weren't actually from PIF, they were through Etsy. Yeah. And some people may just want to build an old afterburner. All right, I'm hearing a click, 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 click. I wonder if I've got over extrusion or something. I see something on there. Looks like a little bit of on there. We'll see. It seems to be doing good. All right. So came with extra PTFE tubing like any of the other ones do. I think we've all, if you've got printers, you've got extra PTFE tubing. There's just no way around it. Let's go to this one. Oh, my Nikon froze up, it looks like. Because it's printing. All right, well, I've got a box full of some cables that I didn't use. I'll chop up cables, use them for something else. I mean, Some of these are pre-terminated. They may come in handy for other things. The E-motor cable, probably won't use that, but I'll throw it into my motor box with the motor. It'll work. I don't know if that'll come through. The little Omron probe. It says it's an Omron. I don't know how to tell a fake from a real one, so exactly, Bill. We buy the PTFE in bulk because we know we'll need it. This is an Omron TL05 MC2-Z proximity switch. I mean, as far as I can tell, it's an Omron. I couldn't tell you how to tell the difference. It's not going on my printers. All of them going forward will use tap or boop where applicable. So unless I'm running a V0, build another V0, it's not going to use. Well, those don't even use the Omrons anyway. They don't use the proximities. So I don't know where I may use that. So I'll hold on to it because, hey, especially if it's a real one, it's a good proximity switch. Yeah, I've got all the parts except for the frame and the bed to build a Trident or a 2.4. More 2.4 because I don't have any motors with integrated lead screws. I did cut the CAN cable and re-terminated it, so I've got enough of their CAN cable they sent. I could rewire my salad fork with this stuff instead of with the bodged together CAN cable I've got in there. That might be a project in the future. It came with, now the sleeving I've got on the back cable runs is different than what they sent. They sent this fabric sleeving. I didn't use it. It's the same, basically the same stuff Prusa was using for a long time. It works. I've got a Chaoticlab black on this one, and I've got a Chaoticlab black to put on my 2.4. That'll probably be next week or the following. We'll do a stream up, moving from dual MGN 9s to an MGN 12 and adding the Chaoticlab CNC Tap. That's the loudest thing about this printer. I don't know if it's coming, if the printer noises are coming through the mic, but I mean, I can stick my hand over there and cover the camera, so I am that close. Like I said, this is the quietest Voron I've got easily. I mean, hands down, it is way quieter than any of the other Vorons in the house, and only my Prusa is quieter. And I mean, the Prusa, when the Mark III came out, that was known to be quiet for a 3D printer at least. Hey, Jack. Well, that's good. I think I do have, I'm almost, well, I want to say I have noise cancellation running, but not, I may not on this. I'm running the stream. I've been doing the last dozen streams or so from my new laptop or newer laptop. It's about a year old because it's got a ARC 370 video card, so I can use the AV1 encoding on it. So I've been running most of the streams through there instead of on my desktop with the 4090. So I don't remember if I turned on any kind of noise cancellation on the laptop for streams. I know I use the NVENC stuff and the NVIDIA broadcast suite on the desktop, so it's got the, you know, AI noise canceling and all that, you know, their fancy stuff. But I don't remember if I've got it on the laptop. So there may be no noise canceling. Let's move on. So the kit also came with all the screws, of course, and looking at my box here, get that up. You can see there's quite a bit left over. I mean, M3x12, that whole pack there is almost full still. I barely used it. So there's a lot of extra screws, which is always nice to see, because even if you don't drop and lose one or need to do maintenance or that, it's still nice to have them. Eventually you're going to need one of these, and for the extra couple of cents that it costs them to add a few extra screws, it's not a, it's great to see extras. That comes to the next big thing, problem I had with the extrusions themselves. Bill, I'm still going back and forth on whether I want to be a streamer or not. I mean, I enjoy doing it, and I'm going to be building these things anyway, so why not do that? But yeah, it took me 5 times as long as it would have to build this thing, which is why the last little bit was done off stream. I wanted to get it done. It was just felt like it was taking way too long. Jack, that is a 24 compartment small parts box from Harbor Freight. I think I've got 2 of them. They work great. They're kind of cheap, and they feel kind of cheap, but for that little bit that we use them for, I'm fine with kind of cheap. I don't need, you know, some $30 small parts bin to hold parts for a 3D printer when a $3 one will work. It's, you know, there's definitely such a thing as overkill in at least some places, and that's definitely one of them that doesn't need overkill. And I don't know, is that wobble? Yeah, I was gonna say, I see I'm watching the camera kind of wobble as the printer moves around because I'm on this folding table. So if there's a problem with print quality, I can't really blame it on the printer too much. You got me beat on screws. I don't have a whole lot. I've only got 3 mils in button heads and flat heads, and they're only silver on those 2. But I've probably got extras on everything from 2 mil to 5 mil in socket caps, socket heads for sure. And I've got a bunch of button heads on 3 mils, and I think a few on 5 mil. Don't have a lot of 4 mil, but I do have most sizes of 4 mil in a socket cap or socket head. I don't currently have any 5 mil by 12 mil. Yeah, I need to buy 5 mil by 12 mil in bulk because $1 per screw, or about $1 for 2 screws, so about 50 cents per screw at Home Depot when I went and picked up the ones to put the handles on. The extra, or the problem I had with the extrusions was the painting, the coating, whatever. I don't want to, it doesn't look bad, but the thickness is inconsistent. So on some sides, the M3 hammerheads drop straight in, not a problem. And on other sides, I had to force them in and hope that I could actually get them forced in. So the coating thickness varies, and it seemed maybe it's a side, maybe the top side where they coated them got extra and the bottom didn't or something. Because it seems to be only one side on each extrusion. The the other nuts went in fine. The T-nuts, the spring-loaded T-nuts, one of them had the ball and spring out when it got to me, but I was able to pop it back in, and it's someplace on the printer working perfectly well. So I mean, these things get beat around a lot shipping from China to here. So sometimes you have to buy from local stores. I'd rather buy from a truly local store than a big chain store that happens to be local. But yeah, I agree. Definitely need to buy in bulk. I just needed those yesterday so I could get this finished. So I just went ahead and the dog wanted to go to Home Depot anyway. Luckily she's outside and can't hear me say Home Depot. Otherwise she would be freaking out like we're getting ready to walk out the door. But sometimes you just need something quick and you don't want to wait the extra day or two to get it shipped from Amazon, or definitely not the extra 2 weeks if you get it from AliExpress. But if you don't if you got a build coming up and you're not needing it quick, yeah, definitely get it online, get it cheap. You can get them in bulk. Yeah, I initially thought these hammer nuts were not correctly spec'd, so I tried some of my good ones from my other kit, where I've got 200 or more of these things, and they were the same size, and I had the same problem getting them into some of the extrusions. So that coating it was annoying more than anything, because it's not a deal breaker, but it'd be nice if it was a little more consistent. At the same time, this kit was half the price or less than what an LDO kit was, so I will take a few exceptions if it's to save that much. If it was, some of the other off-brand kits are running, $100 cheaper than an LDO kit, in which case I'd just buy the LDO kit. I'm not going to worry about saving that much for a no-name kit that I don't know the quality of, and I know the LDO is going to be a good quality kit. So for 50 to 100 bucks difference, I'm buying that LDO kit every time. At half the price, I'll take my chances. And I figure there'll probably be plenty of other people that buy this kit or are looking at this kit and want to know how it is. And I'm not going to complain. I mean, it's like I said at the beginning, I have not done any tuning whatsoever. I'm not going to fault too much print quality on the printer right now with the shaky table that it's on. But the benchy's looking pretty good there. Let's see if we can get it down in there. So, I mean, the benchy doesn't look too bad. I do see some problems with layers. I haven't tuned it. This is just out of the box with a basic config from the web for the printer. I just edited the printer.cfg for what my pinouts are. I did take and add other things, but yeah, I'd still want to see the thicker foam. That's about my biggest complaint on this kit, is I want to see that thicker foam tape. It can't cost that much more for the thicker foam tape. Yeah, they're all basically just rebranded anyway, Jack. There's only, I don't know about in this space, but I know in some other spaces there's only 2, 3, 4 different actual manufacturers of some parts, and everybody just rebrands it and slaps their logo on it. Now I don't know how that is in like the motor space and the extrusion and you know the rest of it, but even on the filament, there's only a couple to a handful of resin manufacturers. Everybody else just blends it with their colorant and such. Yeah, it's nice to be able to pick up just like a screw kit or something for your build. Uh, if you're not planning on doing, you know, if you just want to do one or you're not sure if you want to get into it, a screw kit and like a motion kit or something is a great way to go. Uh, Granted, I don't know too many people that have gotten a quality 3D printer and and not liked it and decided to continue. I do know people who picked up less than quality 3D printers. The Creality brand comes to mind. Uh, Although the Creality that I had for a short period of time, I had no problems with. But I've got a buddy of mine who almost completely gave up on 3D printing because he had a Ender 3 Pro that just, it didn't matter what he did with it, the thing just would not print well for him. And the quality just seems hit or miss on some of them. But I think if you get a quality one, and the cheaper ones have gotten so much better in quality over the last few years. When I bought my Prusa, I've had that thing for 5 years. So it's, you know, that was $750 I think when I got it. The Creality Ender 3 at the time was running around $350, if I remember correctly. And at that time, they were still hit and miss. You know, that was the biggest problem I kept seeing coming up while I was researching. It took me 6 months of research before I decided on the Prusa. I didn't even know self-sourced kits like the Vorons even existed when I bought that. All I saw was the Prusas, the Crealities, and a handful of others. So everything kept pointing towards the Prusa, and I've loved that thing. It's got, I don't know how, it printed all the parts for the Trident. It printed all my parts for the 2.4. That thing's been a workhorse, and I've just done basic maintenance on it over the 5 years. It's got over a year's worth of printing time on it. I don't remember what it is. It was over 450 days the last time I checked 6 months, 8 months ago. And it's just been a beast. It just goes through anything I throw at it. It is in an IKEA lac enclosure. I did put a hardened steel nozzle on it, and all the parts I reprinted in ABS. But that thing has just been a beast. I know they're expensive for what they are, but if somebody tells me they're looking to buy something they just want to run and print stuff whenever, I can't not recommend the Prusa just because that thing has been so great to me. But it is getting tougher and tougher with. I love the thing, but I'm still on the list for an XL. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to go with an XL or not, but I'm still on the list. It's a lot easier to recommend the Mini than it is to recommend the Mark IV, because with the Bamboo Labs out there, some of the Sovals are getting really good reviews. I haven't messed with them, but it's getting a lot tougher to recommend that Prusa Mark IV. My Mark III has been, it's been bulletproof. I can't, anything that's failed on it has been my fault, not the printer's fault. I've got one issue with it right now, and I probably have 4,000 hours or more on it. I don't know. Let me look. while we're waiting on Benchy. It just printed out. I'll pull this little part off of it here in a second too. And this is after, because I forgot I did upgrade to the Bondtech extruder. So I did upgrade from the Prusa extruder to the Bondtech extruder. So I did a number of firmware updates. So this print time is 100 days short or something like that. But I'm showing total print time on my Prusa Mark III, 1,207 days, 13 hours, and 42 minutes. It's just been a beast. It just keeps going for me. So I can't fault it. That thing has been great. Here's the, I don't know how well it's going to come across there. That's that same little corner piece for the to hide the wires for the LED strips. This one I printed it at 75% to go on the salad fork when I get around to getting those done. All I got to do, they're ready to go. I just have to solder the wires in there. Let me catch up here. Hey, Alan, I didn't see you come in. Yeah, I'm really thinking I might just go ahead and keep the XL kit. I did initially put my order in for a single head unit, but over the ensuing months, I decided I wanted to go ahead and go with a 5-tool head changer. So I've updated my pre-order, and I'm just waiting on that to come through. Because since I decided to update my order, got kind of pushed towards the back of the line. Yeah, Bill, that the proprietary crap is what has been keeping me from a Bamboo. And especially the crap with running through their servers. I've got a older HP workstation in the closet that has OSDK. I don't think they're shipping the 5-tool head versions yet. They may be. It'd be like the very first few going out if they are. Yeah, I don't want my stuff going through anybody's cloud. I have an old HP workstation with a 16-core, 32-thread Xeon and 128 gig in my server closet that has runs a Nextcloud instance. So I host my own cloud through there with Office apps and everything. It's got my home assistant. It runs my DNS. And if I need a cloud, I can host it myself. I don't need somebody else to tell me I need to use theirs. Yeah, exactly. I definitely don't want to have to say I can't print because for whatever reason my internet's down or something along those lines. I definitely do not like that. Let me host my own stuff. I love. I use Octoprint on my Prusa. Of course, all my Vorons are using Clipper with. I might go back. I'm using Mainsail on all of them right now. I kind of liked Fluid when I was running it, but they didn't. So I changed over to Mainsail when they weren't updating Fluid very often. Now that they're back to updating it, I might go back. But I want to do all of them because I like having all of them the same. That Xeon is pretty power hungry because it's also I think I paid $150 for the unit with 64 gig of RAM. So it's an older workstation, probably 5, 6 years old at least. So that's way before they started getting even semi decent on power usage. So it definitely sucks a lot of power. But I haven't seen, I've been running it for a few months. I haven't seen a big jump again. Yeah, I'm really hoping they get it back because I did like that interface. They're six of one, half a dozen the other. I mean, they're extremely similar, but I kind of like the fluid interface just a little bit more. Uh, and that could just be because that was the first one I went with. It might have been flipped. Had I put mainsail on the first time, I might like it more because there really is not enough difference there to differentiate them other than to say a personal preference kind of thing. I like the way this one looks a little bit better. I mean, I've adjusted my layouts on all my mainsails to fit how I want to work with it, and I've adjusted other things with it. So yeah, they both work to be nice. I did think that fluid was a little more uh, new user friendly. Probably, I think it gave a little better indication of what was wrong or and such when I was running, if I can remember right, and that was 2 years ago, maybe three, when I first built my 2.4. So uh, it's been a while. I mean, that was pre R2, pre stealth burner, uh, way back in the original 2.4 builds is how, I mean, I built that 2.4 not long after they released the 2.4 files. So that's been a good while. And that was my first time I messed with fluids. So I could be completely remembering it off, and it may be way worse than I remember it being. I have slept way too much since then. Uh, I will say, I think my favorite printer out of my Vorons though is my salad fork. Yeah, if that thing's pulling 1,000 watts, that sounds like it's my 4090. I don't know what my HP server is. It's only one CPU with 16 cores, uh, but it's not that bad. Yeah, and removing macros or macros that we may link to, just kind of changing things around a little bit and breaking basics occasionally. That's gotten a little annoying recently. At least now they're telling you before you do an update. If I know some people don't do updates at all just for that exact reason. I'm just coming from IT and dealing with, you know, anything in that space. I'm just so used to, if there's an update, you try to get your updates done because a lot of the time they fix security problems and such. So you don't do them immediately. You let somebody else beta test them, but then once they're proven, you go ahead and do your updates. So I kind of like doing my updates. Yeah, it's weird on that bill. I run a lot of pies. Um, when I bought the Prusa 5 years ago, I knew what a Raspberry Pi was, but I'd never messed with one. I'd never. I was like, I don't have any need for that. Within a year, I had 5 or 6 of them running in the house after I bought the Prusa, because the first thing I did with the Prusa was put it on Octoprint. And then all of a sudden I started seeing all the different things you can do with pies, and now they're all over the place. My home brewing, I rely on a Raspberry Pi. It handles my temp sensor and my specific gravity meter that goes uh, into my beer while it's fermenting, so I can monitor those throughout the fermentation without having to open up the fermenter, let oxygen in, and deal with problems. I've got a DAC board downstairs running so that my wife can put her work schedule on it. It's just, you just start seeing all these different little projects, and it's like, okay, I can just, build one of those for $40 and go with it. Every processor has their uses. The arms are getting better. I remember days when you did not want to run them, but they're definitely getting better. I don't think that they are a replacement for x86 for most users, but as I'm using them more and more, I'm getting more used to it. Yeah, I agree with Bill on that. Processors are processors. It just depends on what you're trying to do. For my I can't remember the name of the specific gravity meter I throw into my fermentation, but it's just a little Bluetooth low power device that I toss into the wort when I first start fermentation, and I can monitor the temperature to make sure it stays in the right range, and I can monitor the specific gravity so I know when fermentation is done. I can't see a need for an x86 processor just to read some Bluetooth low energy stuff. The ARM is perfect for that. It's just pulling a little bit of data stream off that thing every few minutes, and it uploads it to a Excel spreadsheet so I can track it. There's no reason to go with an x86 processor for stuff like that. Something like your cell phone, an x86 processor, I mean, you'd get an hour or two out of that, and your phone would be dead. There's just not enough power density in there to run an x86 processor long enough. So I think they've got their place, and just depending on what you're trying to do, x86 has definitely got its benefits, but it's also got its drawbacks. I'm not a Mac fan at all. I really don't like Apple's business practices. I've tried Mac OS. I can't get used to it. I want more control than it gives me. So I'm not really worried about them using ARM, but them using ARM is going to help bring it more mainstream than a phone. When Mac had the big advantage with content creation in the 90s, it was because they were using RISC processors. The reduced instruction set just helped a lot. When they went to Intel, everybody would ask me, which way would it go, and I'd always tell them, with Mac on Intel, you're not going to gain anything going with Mac. So unless you really like their ecosystem, it's not worth it. Now I tell them, 90% of what people do is surf the web and check email. I do that. I do more of that on my Android tablet than I do on any of my computers, and it does it perfectly well. Anybody asks me, I just tell them, buy what you're comfortable with. If you don't mind paying the Apple tax and you're comfortable with Apple, go ahead and buy it. It's not going to hurt my feelings one way or the other. But Yeah, a lot of it anymore, even though they're running ARM processors now instead of x86, for 90% of what most people do, it doesn't make a difference. It's just going to run fine. And I may not like Apple, and I may not like their business practices, but there are some things that they do really well. So, yeah, just pick what you like and use it. We've got enough choice. We've got choices, which is nice. At least we're not locked into one thing. You want to run x86 and Linux? There's some great distros out there. You want to run ARM and run Android. You can get some stripped down Android versions out there to run on things, and yeah, there's choices, and none of them are perfect by far. I really like Windows 11 overall, but I really dislike a lot of the crap that Microsoft is pushing on people when they do it, and I don't like this the telemetry and everything else that they've got to try to gather. I'm really tempted to move over to Linux because I think I can do Linux as a daily driver with what I typically use my systems for. I'm tempted to at least move over to a distro on my desktop and see how it works. Yeah, that's installing a driver on ARM is more a problem with the OS than it is the architecture. Most of them are running Linux, and Linux is not that friendly to just adding a driver in like you would on Windows. But at the same time, neither is Mac OS. Mac OS, if you don't want to run what Apple wants you to run, you're probably not running it. That's one of my big issues with Mac is if you want to do something that Mac or Apple doesn't want you to do, you're probably not going to be able to do it. I remember years ago, it was probably my LG G3 phone. I had somebody ask me at that time why I wasn't running an iPhone, and that was, a decade ago at least. And my answer for them was, because on Android, I can go in, root the phone, and disable all carrier checks for running a hotspot. You can't do that on Apple. The iPhone won't let you do it. It doesn't exist. Even if you jailbreak it, you could not go in and disable the carrier checks. So, yeah, it's just anymore. Even at that time, it was really down to whichever one you were most comfortable with. But I like to be able to use my devices like I want to use my devices and not be shoehorned into how everybody else runs their devices. Android, Linux, even Windows gives me more fluidity in that. We're getting there, a little over 3/4 of the way through. I see a little stringing on the bow. I don't know if that's coming through. Well, it might come through on camera if the chat wasn't in the way. Might be able to see it. There's a little stringing on the bow. I see some layer inconsistencies, but that I could probably chalk up to the folding table this thing is on. It's not a stable platform. And, well, no, this is my Prusament, and I'm running the Prusament settings, even though I had to manually do them. Yeah, exactly, Bill. There's still some things out there you just can't move over to Linux for. on the same time, there's some things you can't move over to Mac for, or can't move to Windows for if you're a Mac user. So there are a few things that are holding some things back. And I think with the biggest problem with Linux is there's things like some of those milling machines, some of the things people do, the companies don't move, they don't add Linux support in there, or they don't think there'll be enough of a user base to make it worth their time and money to add it. I don't know if we'll get beyond that or not. Probably not. I do like Linux Mint, and I used to like Ubuntu, and I still run Ubuntu on my server, but I'm not liking them as much in the last few distros. I haven't messed with VBox. My server is actually running Proxmox 8. And then I just manage all the VMs through there. Yeah, I could see that, Alan. That thing is pretty much moving pretty good. I mean, my 2.4, and I run fairly conservative speeds. I'm not running this at really high speeds on this Trident, and it's running at the same settings I use on my 2.4, my V0, and all that. And it's sitting on a 50-pound chunk of granite on top of a table that's been braced, and it can still shake that. So it's moving pretty good. Oh, let's see. Bill, I ran Pi-hole for a little bit. I moved over to AdGuard Home. I don't know what to really say is that big of a difference, but AdGuard Home has worked well for me. It does the same thing. I use it for recursive DNS just like I do with Pi-hole, and it's been nice. I think Pi-hole also has a plug-in for Home Assistant to where I could monitor it and change settings as needed on it as well, because that's what I do with my AdGuard Home. Is if I need to change a setting, I disable it, because some of my water bill, I can't pay my water bill with my AdGuard enabled. I have to disable it just to pay my water bill, because they use a pop-up that gets blocked. I can just pop into my Home Assistant control panel, disable it real quick, pay my water bill, and re-enable it. I think there's a capability to do that with Pi-hole as well. Yeah, they both do the same thing. I don't think there's any real difference between the two as far as that goes. I think it comes down to, again, using whichever one you like, whichever one you're comfortable with. There's quite a bit of that out there now. It's nice to have options. It really is. I'm not going to tie myself to one or the other just because that's what is there. I can go choose something else. And it's nice to have multiple options instead of just 2 or 3 in most instances as well. So I mean, you want a 3D printer, you got choices from $100 to 100,000. There, choose what you want to do. I've got a resin printer that I can use. I've got my FDM printers I can use, so I've got choices there. You know, I'm not going to go SLS or something like that, which would be kind of nice. But yeah, it's nice to have options, and it's nice that some of the stuff has strengths in some areas where others might fall. So if I want to print out minis, if my wife came to me and said she wanted me to print out minis for her D&D game, I'd do it all on the resin printer and not touch it, not use any of my FDM printers. I've got friends that want me to print stuff for them. Depending on what it is, some stuff goes on the resin printer, some stuff goes on the FDM. So yeah, options are best. Yeah, eventually I hope to do some CNC stuff as well. I don't know what to, some days I don't know what I'm going to use the 3D printer for, so I definitely don't know what I'll use the CNC for. But it'd still be nice to have, and the same thing goes for a laser cutter. I'll eventually pick one of those up and use that. All right, well, she is saying an ETA of about 10 minutes left on the benchy here, so the boat's getting close. And yeah, you can see there the little screen, the Nomi is showing 80% done, which that should mesh since it's during the setup for it, you just enter in your IP address for your printer and it just reads the stuff out of Clipper. So everything should be tied in. Setup on that was quick and easy. The biggest complaints I have about any of the big tree tech stuff they sent was those tiny little crimps on the EBB 2240. The rest of the stuff has been great. Yes, Bill. That's I don't really want a diode laser. Looking at what some of the stuff I want to do or would want to do with, like cutting clear acrylic for printers, most of the diodes won't even mark it. Their wavelength passes right through. So yeah, CO2 is it, and my wallet can't currently handle the price on that. Maybe next year it'll be there. Jack, I haven't. This latest batch of BTT stuff I haven't had a problem with. Earlier on I did, but I won't say that the next batch will be as good. But this batch has been great. I was surprised at that Nomi screen and how easy it was to set up and how it just kind of worked at nothing. And I haven't done any customization with it. I'd actually like it to be in blue instead of red, but I don't know if I'll mess with doing that. But I think it'd be nice to have it in blue instead of red on this printer. Just to match the rest of the aesthetics. Yeah, the rest of the benchy looks pretty decent. I can't read the nameplate on the back, but I don't think I was ever able to read that very well, even on my proofs at fine detail, without dropping to much lower layer heights than the 0.2. Let's see. who else is in here? Alan, Jack, Bill. Did you guys see the... It'll burn the tape. I don't. The light still passes through the acrylic. It's a wavelength issue with it. The diode lasers are at a wavelength that just happens to be transparent to the acrylic. If all I wanted to do was engrave wood, burn wood, stuff like that, it would be perfectly fine. Cutting 3 mil balsa wood or something, it'd be perfect for that. Yeah, I'll agree with that one too, Bill. That does seem to be kind of the way. That's why that's why a lot of the Chinese brand printers are just. You'll hear somebody rave about them, and then 10 people have nothing but problems with them. They're just flaky. Pushing too much out at once, I guess, or trying to push too much out and cut every corner possible. Put out a round square. So I don't know, Alan, Jack, I don't know if you guys were here. We're getting close to this, so I have to open it up just because the little loss of heat here won't hurt it. But I know Bill was here when I showed off the electronics earlier. So we've got the inverted electronics down here. The cover's sitting on the floor because I'm going to leave it off until I do my serial number request. That way I can show, the electronics for the serial number request. They came out pretty good, and being able to power that BTT Pi with 24 volt instead of 5 worked out extremely well with running cabling. Oh, and Bill, my name is Steve as well, so it always gets me when I'm watching one of Steve's streams and I hear him talking to the other Steves that come in and have Steve as their username. I'm always, I didn't say anything, did I? That's one of the few places in most of my life I've never been, with maybe more than like one. And then I've got a few places like on Steve's streams and a couple other places are like 5 or 6 of us. And we were like, this is this Steve, that Steve, that Steve. Something I'm getting used to. Alan, I like the inverted electronics so far. I'm really going to like it when it becomes time to do any kind of maintenance on them, because I really hate having to do electronics maintenance on my 2.4 because it's a 350 mil 2.4. That thing is big and bulky and heavy. And to get to anything on the electronics, I've got to lay it down on its back. It would be so nice to have inverted electronics on there. And I know there are some mods for the 2.4s even, but that's going to be so nice it's going to be more of a when I need to do any kind of electronic stuff on this Trident. It's going to be so nice to pop that bottom panel off from the top and just make sure you move the bed all the way to the top. It's out of your way for the most part. Yeah, it's my only complaint was I did not have everything set for the LEDs. I didn't wire them, and I did not wire the chamber thermistor before I put the back panel on. And I needed to do a lot of that stuff on the back side. So, but that was my fault more than anything. All right, Bill, have a good one. I'll see you. I don't remember when Steve said he's doing that collab, if it starts next Sunday or Wednesday. I work Wednesday through Saturday, so depending on what's going on, uh, we'll see how that works out. I'll be on somebody's stream in the next few days, I'm sure. I'll see you then. I'll pop in and wave at everybody. Jack, a drawer sounds like a pretty good idea, especially if you did some kind of umbilical that could move in and out with it, or might not be the best way, but something that when you pull it, of course you'd have to power everything down, but when you pull it, it just disconnects everything. Yeah, Sunday. So I'll definitely be on Steve's stream on Sunday. It's the weekday streams that sometimes I can't make, or Saturday since I work Saturday. So Sunday I'll definitely be on there to watch. I'm really interested because I don't know much about those printers. I've seen them, but that's about it. I haven't really messed a whole lot with looking into them. So I'm really interested. Maybe it'll be one coming up. Salad forks next. Probably a couple weeks before I start it, though. I got to get it printed. So it'll be next. All right, guys. Once Benchy's done, I think I'm going to wrap this up. Already running a little longer than what I was expecting today, but I'm not too bad. Yeah, there you go. And that was weird. The chat showed up on the stream before it showed up on my end. Normally there's a couple seconds the other way. So 91%. Yeah, I've got friends I think on their way over too. Should be here in probably 10 minutes to pick up. I told everybody, if you want some beer, stop by. The new IPA I made is, I had the first glass last night, and I told them, I said, I sent everybody a picture. It's a nice hazy IPA with a lot of hops, and I made that that was my drink last night with homemade red beans and rice. Yeah, white is also one, it doesn't video very well. I mean, you can't, I can see issues on my side, but it's really tough. It doesn't come through on the camera, even on the DSLR, it doesn't come through. Yeah, homemade red beans and rice. I soaked my beans overnight Saturday night, and then I let it cook for 6 hours, 7 hours. And the beer is homemade as well. I made that a few weeks back. It took about a week to ferment, a little over. I think it was about 10 days to ferment and dry hop. And then I let it go 2 weeks to carbonate in the keg, which was probably a week longer than it needed, but I'd rather make sure that it's done and ready before I tap it and start drinking. So being an IPA that's really hoppy, though, now it needs to be drank within the next few months. And I'm not going to drink 5 gallons of beer on my own that quick. I'm not a big drinker. I just enjoy the process of making it. I could probably say the same thing. I print more for other people than I print for myself because I enjoy the process of building the things. Yeah, it doesn't show, it hides the flaws a lot more. All right, well, Benchy is done. So let's see. I don't like pulling them off this early, but it's not gonna, it's a Benchy. I'm a little too squished. Now in my next print with tap though, it might be not, it might be perfect because it seems to be just a slight variance. See if we can get, yeah, and it's just, it's not, I mean, it looks pretty good on the camera. It doesn't look bad. It's just, I need to tune the printer. There's some wisps in places. It's not, I have printed a lot worse benchies. And I have printed some better benchies. So, but it's a benchy. It printed a boat. And here's the, you guys weren't here earlier. Here's this was the first print off of the printer. And it's, there's some, your standard Z layers, but this one came out extremely nice. I was surprised for the first print with absolutely nothing done to the printer other than making sure it would push plastic through the nozzle. I was really surprised. Overall, I'm perfectly happy with it. I love the sound. It's nice and quiet. I love that. It's way quieter than any of my other Vorons, so I love that. The setup was actually pretty good. Standard build with the exception of the paint or coating, whatever the black is on the extrusions being thicker on some sides. That was my biggest complaint with the kit. I mean, I think it was a $650 or $700 kit. I'm not gonna complain about that too awful much. It went together. It prints great. So I'll get it going here in a few minutes, just to do a little more tweaking, and then probably move it onto the floor and let it sit on the floor, or maybe put it where the 2.4 is. I've got some maintenance to do on that. Get that going so it can start printing all the Rook parts, because this is going to be the one I figure I'd get it built and then print all the Rook parts done. So we'll get there. Jack, the LEDs are cob strip LEDs. So this stuff here. I like them because I don't care about RGB on there. So those worked out good. And I should have measured, I printed out the 200 mil long ones. I should have printed out some longer ones. I was just like, it's 250 mil build. I'll print out the 200 mil. And I probably could have gotten away with the 250 or 300 mil holders. But that's still more than enough light in there as it is. And it's set at 80% right now. So I can turn them down and lessen the light in there. Of course, now it's going to flicker because of the difference. But I'm going to end it there, guys. Buddy of mine just rang the doorbell, so I'm going to go down and fill him a growler of beer. Keep an eye out. I will try to post a day or two ahead before the next stream. I don't know if it's going to be adding CNC Tap to the 2.4. I might stream adding the Revo 6 to the Prusa, so that might come up, or if it will be starting on the Rook. But I'll post it and let everybody know. If I can remember, Jack, keep an eye, and I'll add if I can find it, I'll add a link to Amazon to the description where I got those lights. And they're 24 volts, so if you've got an extra hot end heater, it'll work. All right, guys, have a great one. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you in the next one.